Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. My name is Don Arleth, and you're watching the Midday Report here on TVP World. Hungary's National Vote 2025, a so-called referendum on Ukraine's possible accession to the European Union, is slowly drawing to a close. It has drawn sharp criticism over alleged vulnerabilities in online voting and claims of manipulation.
Hungary's nationwide vote on Ukraine's EU accession was initiated by the country's ruling Fidesz party of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, who opposes Kyiv's proposed membership in the bloc and has said that Ukraine's EU membership would destroy the Hungarian economy. Speaking to TVP World, former Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Balázs criticized the vote as a tool for Prime Minister Viktor Orbán to mobilize his base, stressing that it has, quote, no binding power whatsoever.
This is listing or updating the supporters of the government party, and it is hardly controllable. Who is voting and who is not. You can fill out the questionnaire on internet, and nobody can control whether you have done it once, twice, or 10 times.
During the vote, Orbán's party stepped up its anti-Ukraine propaganda. Last week, a shocking anti-Ukraine video was posted by a member of the ruling Fidesz party, Alexandra Shenki-Rally.
I assume you wouldn't want to end up like that either. With Ukraine's accelerated accession to the European Union, traders, merchants, and human traffickers are coming too.
The video was criticized by opposition TISA party leader Peter Magyar.
Until yesterday, Fidesz party had only one well-known female politician, but no longer. Alexander Szentkilai was someone you could either like or dislike. You could either agree with her or criticize her. One thing is certain, as of today, Alexander Szentkilai has no place in Hungarian public life.
At the same time, the TISA leader said he does not support Ukraine's accelerated EU accession. According to a recent survey, a narrow majority of Hungarians still support Ukraine's future EU membership, despite the government's anti-accession campaign. Hungary's Vote 2025 on Ukraine's potential EU membership concludes at midnight on Friday.
Russia launched a massive drone strike on Ukraine's port city of Odessa overnight, killing one person and injuring 14 others. Many residential buildings were destroyed as well. According to Ukraine's state emergency service, the attack began at 1 a.m. local time, with Russian drones hitting 8 locations in the city. One of the targets led to the evacuation of over 600 people, while another left 3 firefighters injured. They are currently in the hospital but are in stable condition. The attack also damaged infrastructure at Odessa's main train station. The Belarusian Ministry of Internal Affairs has officially classified the petitions.by project as an extremist formation, heightening concerns for the safety of those who supported it. The latest move follows a pattern of using extremism as a pretext for crackdowns on dissent. On Wednesday, the Belarusian authorities designated the petitions.by initiative as an extremist group, a move that may expose its signatories to legal risks. The Human Rights Center Vyasna warns that the individuals involved could face prosecution under the country's current controversial anti-extremism laws. Vyasna lawyers emphasize that petitions are a basic democratic right and that recognizing petitions.by as extremist essentially criminalizes participation in collective appeals. The regime often labels any form of criticism or opposition as a threat, using extremism as a pretext for repression. This is not the first instance of such measures. In 2023, Belarusian journalist Andrzej Poczobut was also branded as an extremist, part of a larger crackdown that has labeled over 3,300 online materials and organizations as extremist. Poland's military could receive a €20 billion boost if the European Commission's plans are approved to funnel unspent COVID funds into defense. The plans are part of the EU's European Defense Industry Program, which is due to receive formal approval on Monday.
European Union wants to boost its defences and rearm itself as the threat posed by Russia in its war on the bloc's eastern border increases. One scheme being discussed under the European Defence Industry Programme is the reallocation of unspent COVID recovery funds.
There's a caveat here that will allow each EU member state to use unspent COVID funds, which then, at least for Poland, if that's around 20 billion euros, then you can start really getting the hardware in the gear.
Luis Wierenga, a lecturer in international relations at the Baltic Defence College, told TVP World Talks that Poland is well placed to benefit. The deal is part of a broader push to boost Europe's defence industry. Ambassadors from the EU's 27 countries are expected to approve it on Monday. The deal will then be the subject of negotiations with the European Parliament before it can enter into force.
Norway plans to raise its defense spending to 3.5% of the country's GDP and aims to use an additional 1.5% for broader security-related purposes, in line with the planned common goal among NATO states. This is according to Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. NATO chief Mark Rutte has proposed that member nations should agree on a new 5% of GDP spending target for defense and broader security measures at a June 24th to 25th meeting in The Hague. We must do more to secure our country and contribute to our common security with our allies in NATO, stressed the Norwegian Prime Minister at a press conference on Friday. He also added that the 3.5% spending includes Norway's financial support for Ukraine's military defense. The reality here is that Trump has been played by the Israelis, said Scott Lucas, professor of international politics at University College Dublin, while discussing the shifting dynamics in the Middle East amid the Iran-Israel conflict. Lucas went on to explain that while the U.S. was in the midst of negotiations with Iran over its nuclear program, Israel's actions derailed those efforts, forcing President Trump into a difficult decision.
According to Lucas, Israeli ambitions to derail Iran's nuclear program have forced America's hand, putting both the future of Iran and the conflict in doubt.
Israel took over that narrative with the start of the assault on Iran. And when they took over that narrative, they forced Trump into a decision. And that is, would he continue with that path of negotiations with Iran, or would he accept that those negotiations were effectively pushed aside?
He went on to say that Trump was simply played by Israel.
The reality here is that Trump is not in control of the situation. The reality here is that Trump has been played by the Israelis.
According to the White House, President Trump will decide whether or not the U.S. gets directly involved in the Iran-Israel conflict within the next 2 weeks.
Iran could produce a nuclear bomb in the space of a couple of weeks, the White House said in a statement as U.S. President Donald Trump debates whether to take military action against Tehran. The U.S. President Donald Trump recently said, quote, "I will make my decision whether to go or not within the next 2 weeks."
Let's be very clear. Iran has all that it needs to achieve a nuclear weapon. All they need is a decision from the supreme leader to do that. And it would take a couple of weeks to complete the production of that weapon, which would, of course, pose an existential threat, not just to Israel, but to the United States and to the entire world. And that is something that the entire world, including countries like Russia, is in agreement with, that Iran should not and cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. And that's why the president believes that, and he's believed that, again, not just his political career, but frankly, his entire life.
A massive data leak has affected major platforms like Apple, Google, and exposing the passwords of more than 16 billion users. Cybersecurity researchers discovered a record-breaking leak of login data, including usernames and passwords from major platforms such as Facebook, Yahoo, Microsoft, and many others. The largest of the leaked database contains over 3.5 billion records. Experts warn that such data breaches could lead to widespread phishing attacks, account takeovers, and other forms of cybercrime. The stolen data could also be used in credential stuffing attacks. Today is World Refugee Day, an international observance established by the United Nations to raise awareness about the plight of refugees around the globe. Celebrated every year on June 20th, this day highlights the rights, struggles, and resilience of refugees worldwide. More details in this next report.
Today, refugees need solidarity more than ever. With forced displacement at record levels and humanitarian aid under strain, this year's theme, Solidarity with Refugees, calls on the global community to take real action and support those forced to flee their homes. According to recent UN reports, 20 people are forced to leave their homes every minute due to war, persecution, or fear for their lives. There are several categories of forcibly displaced persons.
The term migrants is a broader term that involves all people who are moving from one place to another. Within this broad category, there is a smaller category, very small, of asylum seekers, people who are seeking refuge and may apply for the refugee status.
The war in Ukraine has caused one of the largest migration crises in Europe in the 21st century. As of April 2025, over 6.4 million Ukrainian refugees were registered across Europe and 6.9 million globally. By March 2022, approximately 1/4 of the country's total population had left their homes. Meanwhile, it's been 1 week since the military conflict between Israel and Iran began.
Iran is a country of 90 million people. And if the situation escalates even further, of course, there might be another migratory and also refugee pressure coming from that part of the world.
As the number of forcibly displaced people rises rapidly, the UNHCR reports that in mid-2024, more than 120 million people worldwide had been forcibly displaced due to persecution, violence, and war.
Poland's Prime Minister has appointed Adam Szłapka, the former Minister for European Affairs, as the first official government spokesperson. Prime Minister Donald Tusk made the announcement on Friday. According to the Prime Minister, Adam Szłapka will formally take on the spokesperson role when Poland's EU presidency comes to an end. Starting today, however, he will act as the main figure responsible for clear communication between the government and the public. Szłapka is the first ever government spokesperson in the 1.5 years of Donald Tusk's administration. Szłapka stated that his new responsibilities will focus on effective communication and transparent reporting of the government's changes, successes, and challenges. Another Spanish footballer, Joan Garcia, is joining the famous FC Barcelona. The club and the player confirmed the news this week. Spanish media report that Garcia is expected to become the team's main goalkeeper. Wojciech Szczęsny is being considered as his replacement, but he has not signed a new contract yet. Garcia's transfer will cost Barcelona €25 million plus bonuses. His contract runs until June 30th, 2031. According to Spanish sports media, Joan Garcia is now the second most expensive goalkeeper in Barcelona's history. And that concludes this midday report. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on TVP World.